Internet came for some very different use cases and became the internet it is today. So we were also building for these fringes. We realized that the fringes are much larger, and we realized by solving for their problems, you are actually building the best product for the rest of the 40-50 million people also.
If you build for masses, it serves everybody.
Yeah, banking is like electricity for fintech. So it touches everything that a fintech touches. I really love what we are doing. Our team really loves what we are building. It's finally about building something for yourself, truly. Being very, very raw, honest to yourselves. That what do you want in the world? If you're building great tech, but it is not serving a real world use case, it's a dud. AI potentially is going to allows us to get out of this potential like middle income trap and go towards the vision that we have, becoming a developed country within 2047.
Welcome to NPCI's Innovators Playground podcast. We are doing this podcast for budding engineers who would get inspired to build for India. And I believe that there is so much to be done. There is so many opportunities. There are so many unsolved problems which as a country we have. And I believe that this podcast will give inspiration to all those engineers to work towards contribute and solve the problems what we have. I'm happy to welcome our guest today in the podcast, Mr. Rajan Bajaj, who's an engineer from IIT Kharagpur and building India's one of the best digital banks, Slice. He has been doing this for last 9 years. Recently, he's got a bank with him, and for next few years, he's going to make this as one of the India's best and most loved digital bank. Hi Rajan, thank you so much for agreeing to participate in NPCI's Innovators Playground podcast. You have been building Slice for last 9 years now. And what has kept you keep going in this whole journey of last 9 years?
Thank you so much for having me, Dilip. It's a deeply personal problem for me. When I was in college back in 2011-12, I used to play a lot of basketball. I always wanted to buy a Nike shoe, but was always ending up buying a Reebok shoe or an Adidas shoe because that's what the pocket money I was getting for buying the shoe. But I had some extra pocket money for my regular expenses, and I could always see that I can spend that 1,000 rupee extra every month, get an upgraded shoe and pay in installments over 3 months, 4 months. But no one really wanted to give an installment based product to me. Then when I got into the job, I wanted to buy a phone for my mother on installment again, which was just the first 1 or 2 months salary or income. Again, I was not eligible for any credit card. And the reason was because I'm just starting. And I had to take a card from my friend and then buy phone on installment. And I was paying them every month manually, remembering, keeping a note of that. Like, this is so tedious. But once I got credit card, I saw that, okay, I understood how it works, what are the interests, what are the free credit period. I started understanding more about finance from that. And that was a pretty interesting learning curve for me. I thought in college, like everyone thinks you know everything about everything. So that was like the first real learning for me in the working world. Like, this is how credit works. This is how some of the things in economy work. And then when I started my first startup, it was a rental startup. We were giving these furnitures and appliances on installments to people. They can just pay on rent. It was not even installment. So they can pay over 4 years, 5 years also for rental. But we expected people will just rent for 6 months or 12 months.
Yeah.
There were some people, and a good amount of people, 20-30%, who were renting for they were very clear they'll keep renting for 4 years, 5 years. And effective IRR for them will be very high if you keep renting for so long. So we were like, why are you going to rent for so long? And we realized these people also don't have access to credit. So we started by solving for these people whom we thought are like us, but they're on the fringes of getting approved for our transactional credit product. And there were like tens of millions of them that we could foresee. And we later realized there are probably hundreds of millions of them now. And if we don't solve for these people to get credit, then they will always be outside of our formal credit economy. Although when we realize later, and we can talk about it more, like by solving for these people, we just didn't solve for these people. We brought the cost down to a level. We made the product so great because we wanted viral distribution instead of acquiring them at a large cost. We brought the risk to a level where we are underwriting them on their spends-based patterns, which was equally applicable for the regular people who are getting access to credit from formal system, like the 40-50 million people who have access to credit cards or UPI credit cards now. They also benefit a lot from what we have built for these other 150-200 million people who don't have access to formal credit systems. And now it's very personal for us to be able to build a great bank for them, the most loved bank in the country for them.
The gap which you saw then with yourself, very interesting to see that how you could actually create a vision out of it, right? I think it's fabulous, and I think the country is blessed to have people like you who are able to spot these gaps and actually create a institution to fill in that, or at least go closer to bridge that gap. Rajan, I think you have been a fintech founder. Now you're turning up a banker. How do you think this is going to be different, or you just go build a bank like a fintech, or the canvas? India is such a large market, right? While we have done so much in, thanks to government, thanks to RBI, we have done so much in financial services, but still there is 10x more to be done, right? So how do you see the fintech role, the bank role, and what's your vision on how do you want to design your bank?
First of all, I would like to start by thanking you, and since you asked this question, and the stabilizing forces in our country and the innovating forces in our country on a platform level that are allowing to have these things even happen in a country like ours at this scale. NPCI, RBI, government, the forward-looking thinking of building an Aadhaar, building UPI stack, building Idya stack. What you are doing as institutions for some of us who are building companies is the reason we are able to think about growth and building better products compared to the rest of the world. I think same function banks play in regular customers' life. They are these stabilizing forces. They are these economically super important instruments for our country, without which the growth doesn't happen. To give you an example, we were at this hotel, and then the waitress comes and asks us for the bill, and I'm paying from my Slice card. And she's asking me, how did you get this card? I also applied for it. I didn't get approved for this card. I really wanted this card for myself. She said something very interesting. She's like, someone has to build these products for people like us also. And the reason that's very important is this is not just about that they can do their education payments, or they can do their, let's say, emergency or their regular lifestyle payments. But when they get into a regular credit usage in a formal credit system, when they are getting their next home loan or next car loan 5 years later, 10 years later, or a business loan for that matter, that rate is little lower. The ability for them to get approved from a financial system is higher because they built a history for themselves. And that is life-changing for them.
India still has a huge scope for everybody, but I think more so for the people who are in the fringe zone, right? The people who are on the edge. That's a complex job. We spoke about your role on transitioning from a fintech to a bank, and banks are like a backbone of the country's economy, the growth drivers, and the country is as strong as their banks are. While you create a slice bank, and while you spoke about the fringe section, but you still have to create, and that's a challenge for the large banks as well. Right from the HNI, super HNI to the last mile, right? It's going to be such a big stretch you're going to serve. So how are you designing your technology stack, which will be able to do this? The world is changing so fast, right? So how are you kind of handling this aspect of providing that benefit to all sections in such a simple and secure manner?
First of all, these fringes are not fringes anymore. We started by thinking they're fringes.
They're fringes,
We also realized much later that it's not like just 10 million more customers. It's actually now 300 million people who are eligible for credit in India potentially.
But only actually, I use the word credit for 500 million. That's my...
That may be the future in next 10 years. So there's just 40 to 50 million people who are using transactional credit, like credit card kind of products regularly. And UPI credit card completely changes that in a big way. In order to build UPI credit card, you have to be very serious about credit and very serious about tech. And what we also realized is, which we didn't know earlier, is if you build for these customers who are on the boundary conditions, who don't get those small credit limits also, like 10,000 rupees is great for many of these people in the 250 million who don't have access. If you build for them, you are fundamentally building a credit risk model which is based on their spending patterns and their cash flows. You are building a product that has inbuilt virality, because you didn't want your cost of acquisition to be very high. Like, you can't stand in a mall, you can't stand in an airport to sell your product to them because it's too costly.
Too costly, yeah.
For 10,000 rupee limit, it will not work. So you had to build a product that naturally is viral and people talk about it. And we had to build automations in a way that we can't have a person speaking to you in a branch all the time if you have any issue. All the things are available in your app at your fingertips. So what we realized much later is if you build these things, anyways, what happens is for those 40, 50 million people also, they are the best experiences, which is how most of the technology, and you would know this better than me, Dilip, industry history is about. Like a Google was building for a page rank for academic papers, right? Internet came for some very different use cases and became the internet it is today. So we were also building for these fringes. We realized that the fringes are much larger. And we realized by solving for their problems, you are actually building the best product for the rest of the 40, 50 million people also.
If you build for masses, right, it serves everybody. It serves everybody because you create that simplified experience, a very easy, very kind of a hands-on thing. Nobody should deny, right? I think the principle what you're using is, if you build it for all, irrespective of the strata or the demographics, it can be used by everybody. I think that's a point.
And it's a much better product for everybody. Like Google PageRank became a much better search engine for everyone eventually.
And actually, you're making a great point. I want to just talk. There's no better person to talk about, the tech versus product balance and how you design something for the consumer. But I'm still stuck on the point of when you're building a bank in a very different way, and you spoke about some of the products needs a very different approach. You spoke about credit on UPI, creating that journey, and I've heard that you're building your own stack. So can you speak about that? How does this vision of building own stack, right, matches your vision? Because none of the banks are actually today are building their own stack. If the existing system they want to build a bank for the future, how do they build, and how do the engineers kind of adding up to your vision in Slice?
Our engineers are really motivated by solving hard tech problems, but what they're even more motivated by is solving real world problems. And that's exactly what we're doing with building the entire core banking system in-house. It is a necessity. We realized it very early on that we have to build the entire core banking system in-house. Because if we don't do that for the digital scale, it's just not going to be serviced from the monolith architecture that most of the traditional banking systems are still using, and because they use that because someone else is building it for them. They are not directly having a technology team who's overseeing that development. So what happens in the monolith system, kind of like our system is not core banking system also, I would say it's like core banking microservices or core banking services. So this architecture is core banking services architecture, which is quite a modern architecture, and you'll see many of the tech companies using that.
Yeah.
It's mostly about the time to ship things. You have built these 60, 70 different microservices. In fact, we have the other problem where we were slightly higher for microservices. And so now we're trying to cut down to like 30,
it's too
40.
Distributed, right? The architecture is too distributed.
Yeah, we went to the other extreme. So we are solving that tech debt right now as we speak.
Wow.
So in order to have such kind of a ramp up, completely digital, no person involved, no person is going to a branch and saying open the account. They're coming to the product directly and they're opening it themselves. You have to build the entire video stack in-house. You have to have the entire core banking in-house. If you don't do that, doing these spikes, the monolith, if one system fails, like some part of the transaction system is failing, like your entire system has the potential to get impacted. So what these microservices really allow us is we can just ship things faster. I'll give you an example with RD. RD is a very standard recurring deposit product, right? It's there from forever. But in a monolith kind of a system, if you come up with an idea as a company, like you think that customers now want daily deposit because UPI autopay has changed something fundamental in the world.
Right.
And people are willing to pay 50 rupee every day instead of 1,500 rupee a month. And that's much bigger market. In order to build a daily deposit product on top of a monolith RD, you have to copy paste that entire thing, building something for the RD and something for the daily deposit kind of a product. But in a microservices product, you're like, hey, these are like, 5 different components of this product. I can keep these 4 components. These 4 are the best components. They're already working. I'll just switch this one component, make it from monthly to daily. And that's about it. It's the same service that can run. You don't have to create something new, which has to be managed separately. Daily product is, by the way, more efficient than a monthly product. So it's great for the customers who are using it. They're able to much efficiently use their money, get better interest.
No, I think you're using tech very wisely. You're dropping the marginal cost to near zero, right? Because every addition of a new customer, right? It's going to be a fairly similar cost, right? Because once you're building your tech, once you build a horizontally scalable tech, which can scale up, right? The compute and processing is not going to be much in that sense. I think it's a great thinking and strategy. If we turn around to, we will talk about two things on a consumer experience side, and we spoke about the first 300 and the 700, right? And we'll go to both. When you're looking at first 300, how are you able to drive the engagement? What are your principles on designing the product for consumers for such a large, even 300 million is a large section, right? Because I think, how are you going to deliver that experience, engagement, and create that love? You're going to deliver that vision using the Slice app, in that sense, and the backend supporting together.
It's finally about building something for yourself, truly. Being very, very raw, honest to yourselves. That what do you want in the world? That's the starting point of solving all the problems. You see your relatives who are a shopkeeper, and you want them to have a better payment system, more instant settlement, better current accounts, digital current accounts. We want people like you to be able to use UPI credit card, which is a great product for them. So that's the starting point, and then build core banking. And then you focus on the right set of prioritizing, right? Because there are obviously hundreds of problems to solve. Like risk was very important for us. We also have built the video KYC stack, by the way, in-house. People go through our own video KYC. These 300 million people who have practically a branch in their hand, and we should be the best branch for them in their phone. So then video KYC if you build in-house. So when the customer is going and there's some suspicious activity, for example, we can instantly at that time trigger that we need extra checks for you. Otherwise, we can't onboard you. And these are the things, while they are hygiene, but these are the things that allow us to scale. Today, we have the lowest suspicious account numbers in new customer onboarding. So be able to have this control on data and tech yourself is a big, big boon.
I hope the engineers watching this show decide to build for India. And you spoke about this video KYC. You spoke about this, creating the very custom software using AI, right? And solving a real world problem. How are you using AI within Slice? What are the use cases which you're looking at? You spoke about video KYC. What are the other things which you're targeting? And what's your vision out of this? Because I think the AI is going to eat the world, right? That's what people say. But how are you seeing to fit Slice into the today and tomorrow's AI world?
Yeah, so AI is like a new kind of a computer, and the way you interact with that computer is natural language. It's the coding language of that, right? India as a country has a real risk of going in this direction where you have this middle income trap. As a country, your average per capita income doesn't cross $10,000. So AI potentially is going to be a big reason that we have productivity gains on a human productivity level, where people are producing not just for fellow citizens in the country, but for people outside, like fellow human beings. And that allows us to get out of this potential like middle income trap and go towards the vision that we have as a country of becoming a developed country within 2047. Yeah. For banking, I think banking is that stabilizing force, right? It's that small thing which allows you to have a sort of stable foundation on which you can think about productivity gains, you can think about growth. So that stability that banking provides is super important. And many of those functions can now move to AI, make them much more efficient. For example, today already, like in customer service, 70% of our queries are being answered by AI. Almost like 25-30% of repayment follow-ups when customers don't pay on time are happening via AI. So makes it much more standard and much more efficient also. That's why that works out better than a human, sort of doing that. But then human can move to a much higher level of more creative work where you're designing those systems. You're thinking about what are the insights you're getting from the customer that you can build in the AI. You don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You can get the best advice also on what is making sense for you, what is not making sense. And that makes it much more easier than those productivity ideas that they're getting because of AI. They can transform into a better business and be more productive.
The branches are seen as a trust factor by the citizens while doing the financial services. Somewhere I believe that, right? Because even the leading banks like SBI, HDFC, ICICI, Axis, the large public sector banks are still building the branches, right? Because one is the aspect of the human interaction and the value out of the human interaction and the trust, right? So how do you solve this, right? Because as a digital first bank or a tech first bank, what is going to be your strategy? We have spoken a lot on this Android ATM, and can you talk about that a little bit?
A great way to service customers through branches. Branches are going to be super relevant in the future also.
Yeah.
One is this Android ATM use case. When we analyze the Indian market, 300 million, sure, they have potentially they can get access to credit, and they should move more and more towards this phone-based branch and then eventually phone-based banker.
Eventually, yeah.
But then there are 700 million people who will take that route little later, maybe 10 years, 20 years, 30 years later. So for them, any of their physical banking related use case, taking cash, depositing cash, anything related to check, paying their family as they're a migrant worker, they have to use a physical setup. So these Android ATMs are amazing there because you can bring the cost down to a level where they are using UPI.
Yeah.
Something they understand. They just go and scan their phone, enter money through UPI. They can enter their cash and they can send money to anyone they want, just like on UPI.
Yeah.
And practically very, very low cost. So they will become their branches.
Yeah.
Just put one more person there, a small setup, and that's like the branch for most of these people.
So it's like, you have a bank on a phone, right? And a bank inside the ATM now, right? I think that. And the software should be fairly common, right? Because
it has to be exactly the same that you have on your phone.
Software.
Same thing is getting delivered to them, just that they have that physical use case of a cash.
And then I've been just thinking that, I go to the Android ATM and I just say that, you do the face auth using, you exactly know who this customer is. And then there is a AI avatar talking to the consumer, and I say that in just plain Hindi that मेरे 200 रुपए एक म्यूचुअल फंड में निवेश कर दीजिएगा, and the machine does everything. It just goes back and does the discovery, does the current NAV, and comes back with the exact solution with the agentic AI, and actually does that for the consumer. I think this, if you are able to build this kind of a software layer on both on the consumer app as well as the Android ATM, I think that will drive the huge engagement. In my assessment, I think that will be the next the level 2 problems or level 3 problems, right? While we have solved the paying money or a scan and pay, but I think the level 2 problem where the LLMs are trying hard to solve the level 2 problems to ecosystem access and get the ecosystem towards you.
Yeah.
How are you thinking?
Well, exactly that's how we are thinking about it. Like for these 700 million people, if we're not thinking about them today, then we're not doing justice with the tech architecture that we have built. We are going to do that, all of that, like you're rightly saying, in the phone anyway.
This voice is a magic, right? I'm saying the biggest use case of AI is going to be the voice, right?
Voice is the way to get a billion people to bank with you, or
bank with you,
transact with you, pay with you. So UPI will be the first use case, I think.
And more, what I hear from this whole large LLMs, that the voice, the youngsters are only talking and trying to interact with the AI, right? I think the voice is going to be the future, and in India, multilingual is the driving force, right? In that sense.
Absolutely. Although in the cases where voice is still not faster, like where you are doing something which is very high frequency, and you know exactly on the home screen of a product, you just tap that and things get done.
Yeah.
That'll be faster. So I think nothing fundamentally changes, right? Consumers are naturally moving towards more and more faster and cost saving and better things for them. Things are becoming more efficient. So wherever voice is more efficient, and it's more efficient for many use cases, voice will be primary.
We have spoken on credit for every Indian, or 500 million, right? The credit definition is changing, right? And we speak about these 3 principles of super fast is the first S. The second is a small, right? And third is a short. And UPI credit, right? In that sense, you have started leveraging the UPI, the credit line on UPI. What's your experience, and how are you seeing consumers using? What's your plan to go to the masses with this?
Credit card is a 75-year-old product.
Yeah.
UPI is going to change that fundamentally, and this is going to start in India. We just have 40 to 50 million people using credit cards and transactional credit products in India. Why? 300 million people are eligible. Costs just sometimes don't make sense. You can't acquire them in the traditional way. You can't give them higher credit limits. Many of them only can deserve 10,000 rupee to start with, or 5,000 rupee even. So UPI reduces the cost. You don't even have to ship a card, no physical card, courier that, and people receive that. UPI is so simple. Everyone is using it. They're used to it. You can acquire customer at the point of sale.
Yeah.
You can give them lesser cost credit because merchants also want these customers to be able to transact with them. You show them rewards. You show them the control of their transaction upfront in the mobile interface. Earlier, it was all happening in an offline, physical card world. And then also, by the way, very important, you give access to credit at so many more merchants now. And you solve really hard problems of fraud at some of these merchants because they're accepting credit for the first time. But for these people, the credit card end of instrument were not even relevant because your average ticket size was 3,000 rupees.
Yeah.
3,000 rupees is the highest type of ticket size transaction that they do usually. So those 500 rupee transactions where merchants of 200 rupee where merchants were not accepting, and they are also sometimes emergency, or like they're buying a course, for education purposes, they just get missed out. So by solving their problems, you make it a better product for everyone in the country.
You're making a great point because, that was our thought process that, these are 55 million merchants are not getting their share of the consumer's credit, whatever they are spending today. They could only spend on the large merchants. A Nariyal Pani wala outside couldn't get a credit card customer to spend on that 70 rupees thing. But, today with the credit on UPI, that makes it possible, right? If we want to create a large consumption-led economy, these merchants must have an access to the consumer credit spends, right? And
It was not just about that, it's about the future also for them.
how do you see your next 10 years, right? Is it going to be Slice, making a Slice one of the best banks in India, or anything else? What are you thinking?
I really love what we are doing. Our team really loves what we are building. It could take even 15-20 years to build what we are building, and I'm super committed to that. And the problem that we are also solving can't be solved in 2 years or
2 years,
4 years.
Yeah.
I'm super committed to building this for the long term.
While the banks is a long-term play, and there is so much to do, right? I'm saying we as a country, I believe we have just started, and virtually banks can do everything right now. I'm saying today, the whole digital financial services stack, while payments is at the bottom now, and you look at while the PMJDY and some of the schemes which government launched have solved the inclusion problem, but digitalization is still a big problem to solve, right? And even though while we take a claim that we have solved, there is a 10x growth, and the financial services, the credit, investment, insurance, which again the banks can play a key role.
Yeah, banking is like electricity for fintech. So it touches everything that a fintech touches. But if you can build it with the same ethos of a fintech and the tech, you can actually do a great job on the scaling at a consumer and merchant level also, where sometimes it's a struggle.
On a lighter note, in next 2-3 years time, and I'm sure some of the other banks also doing a lot of tech innovations, and I think this whole fintech versus bank debate dies down once you build the digital only bank. How do you see the open banking or neobanks future? If you are only building the digital bank, right? What is the need of a neobank?
There are always going to be some niche areas, right? Like India is such a large
market.
Country. There are always these fringes that we discussed, right? And earlier, like a teenager is there, or a joint account for a married couple is there, or some senior citizen account is there, where they need something very special in a software. We discussed about high frequency use case should be super simple, and then some of the complicated use cases move to a AI first voice layer.
Yeah.
So for all of these super simple use cases where one person only just needs one thing, the digital banks of the world will also start giving option in like some setting of yours that you can convert your entire product like this product. But many people will be naturally inclined to something that just built for that. Also from a branding angle, it's like a D2C company, like you're just too focused on that. Your brand is built around that. So there'll be some relevance there always. And you can still build a very large company just by being on those outer use cases. What do you think though?
I think the RBI has tried to solve this by, for example, account aggregator, right? UPI is one more example. But I think when the government RBI is thinking about the ecosystem, right? The interoperability, the open banking is going to be very important from a country's overall growth, right? Because see, today I don't believe that one entity can do everything. The partnerships are important. Interoperability is important. And
But banks should also do open banking, no? By the way, why should banks shy away from also being a digital app for an open banking?
100%. I think today, and thanks to the regulator's policy on interoperability, I think everybody has a level playing field. It's up to one's capability to kind of deal with the problem. But once you build an app, that app must be for everybody.
Like ULI is a great framework, right? So if you are not able to service a particular merchant, particular business for a particular loan use case, as a bank also, as a fintech for sure, but as a bank also, you should be providing that service within your product. Why not?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. Giving banking services versus giving the experience, I think that's where we are talking about. And yes, banks have been having a mindset on, I'm here to give banking services. I'm here to give an experience. I see that changing now with this whole interoperability concepts, the account aggregator. I see the change of language. The experience is as important as banking service, or rather more important than banking service. That's at the core of your design or a consumer app. Automatically, the banking will become a subset of that part. So I think it's here to stay. It will be interesting to see how everybody looks at it.
And India has so many great banks, right? There are some banks are really good at corporate. Some banks are really good at housing. Some banks are going to be good at some part of the banking. And then there will be some digital first bank like ours.
Yeah.
But then there are going to be some companies which are building on top of the banks, and they're going to be good for those niches. And then open banking will allow all of them to also support other use cases.
Yeah.
But then if those digital banks or these current banks can also be a part of open banking and think of themselves as a fintech in that particular area, they can also do that.
Yeah, it's inevitable, and let's expect that even in that area, we as a country, we create a leading position, and ULI is a great example in that aspect. Rajan, on the personal front, you have been a basketball player. Do you still get time to play sports while running a bank?
Yeah,
or while building a bank?
Yeah, I do play basketball every few weeks, even now.
I know you read a lot also. How's the reading journey or learning journey looks like?
The book that I keep finding myself going and reading again and again is Beginning of Infinity. What's the theory of knowledge? What are these good explanations? Just great books like Titan, like on Rockefeller and Steve Jobs' book, or now Elon Musk book. Like these are just great biographies. I read the Titan one while I was in college, very inspiring.
Let's move to the some fun time, the rapid fire.
Is there a hamper?
What drives the company more, whether it's a tech or a product?
Both go hand in hand. Engineers always want real world impact. So if you're building great tech, but it is not serving a real world use case, it's a dud.
A piece of advice you would give it to your younger self? You are any which way.
Yeah.
Maybe a wrong question to you, but still if you can.
Yeah. So maybe keep make the same mistakes anyway that you end up making, but ruminate less about them, have lesser emotions about them, get out of them fast and just move forward.
One skill which you wish you could have learned earlier?
This thing, like just moving forward pretty far, like any setback, any small setbacks, anything, any small failure, just get out of it.
Youngsters who are aspiring to be engineers, or the engineers who are going through their studies, what is the one or two messages you would like to give it to them?
So there'll always be big platform shifts that will keep happening. We have seen so many of them. What doesn't change is people want to do things, and we will not stop as a race till the time we figure out how to conjure a black hole within our galaxy at our will, and then we do this and the black hole goes away. So it's like infinite kind of wants that we can keep having. So these platform shifts and all are all means to an end of what we want to do. So just keep focusing on what people are moving towards in terms of their want and what is possible with the new knowledge that we all have created.
It's going to be a lot of work on building software technology, and in today's session you opened up so many use cases. I think that was really great, Rajan, that, what are we solving for? Thank you very much for participating in this podcast. And I'm sure the viewers watching this would get immensely benefit and get inspired by, you started from 22 and 9 years you have been, and you reached to the stage of, you spoke about the number of accounts you're opening on a monthly basis. I think very inspiring. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for watching this podcast, and I would request all of you to send us the feedback, comments, or any suggestions, question, what you have for NPCI to address them in this podcast.